Mixtape is getting completely torn to pieces online and people are mixed on it. Honestly, the more I learn about this game, the more I'm finding myself coming to the conclusion that there are parts of the games industry that are 100% in the same bed together, smelling each other's farts and uplifting each other in what I can really only call astroturfed ways. Insider Gaming, as you can see here, asks the question, why does the internet hate Mixtape so much? They come up with a few ideas because it's short, it has minimal mechanics, and they also bring up the infamous kissing video. It may be a little bit of all of those, although short games are not really hated either. After all, people really love games like Limbo and Inside. There's plenty of really short games that we all love too. Old school Super Mario games, Mega Man X, every fighting game single player modes ever made, the length of the game is not the problem. I think the real reason is because Mixtape tries to sell itself as this indie darling. But then when you look deeper into how it was actually made, you start to realize that this is probably the most anti-indie game that has ever been made. Firstly, there's the publisher of this game. Mixtape was published by Annapurna, which a lot of people like to say that they're sort of like the A24 video games. Which if you don't know what that means they tend to publish weird, artsy indie games over big budget AAA games instead. They've done stuff like The Outer Wilds and Stray, for example. Anyway, Annapurna, however, was founded by Megan Ellison, which is this lady on screen here. Megan isn't just anybody either, right? She's the daughter of one of the richest men on our planet, who's Larry Ellison, a guy who was worth somewhere near $200 billion plus, depending on which source you read online, I guess. Megan Ellison eventually founded Annapurna in 2011, and since then has published all kinds of things. So already, the people behind this game's marketing push come from effectively the least indie independent-like backgrounds you could possibly imagine. This is like Tony Stark levels of money, pretending that it's actually made in a garage, when in reality it's anything but that. Not to mention the fact that Mixtape is filled to the brim with licensed hit songs from all over the music world. Songs from bands like the Smashing Pumpkins, Iggy Pop, and much more. The very fact this indie game has songs that likely costed hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not a cool few million to license for the game to even effectively work, which is a lot times more than most indie games' entire budgets, by the way, because this whole game is based around its 28-song soundtrack, is about the least indie thing imaginable about it. This entire concept is, in actuality, kind of a horrible look for indies, I gotta be real, because this is effectively big corporate American companies backed by billionaires LARPing as struggling artists, while they, all live in mansions instead. So Mixtape ends up becoming a prime example of what kind of hurts the integrity of what an indie game even means these days. It would be like saying, hey, here's my indie film that stars only A-list actors, and my dad, who's a billionaire, funded it all too. Not exactly indie then, is it? That's Mixtape pretty much. The entire thing just comes off like it's in bad faith. And I just feel bad for actual indie artists that are out here who are likely struggling to pay their rent, and they're making games with, a shoestring budget. Seeing their space, which is usually meant for independent creators, hence indie in the title, wow, go figure, being used like as a marketing tool, essentially, to push a narrative to warrant these high scores from all the usual places in the shills too. Because, when you really think about it, when a game is called indie, people tend to review the game more favorably because they're looking at it as in it's an underdog. This game was not made with the budget or whatever of like a Call of Duty or something. But when you look at what Mixtape is, come on guys, look at the game on screen. How does anything you're seeing here look indie at all? This game is in full 3D with unique art assets everywhere. There's beautiful sprawling levels, or I guess sequences, that look akin to like a Hollywood movie even. Not really something that is made in someone's spare bedroom between working hours at their day job. Not to mention, this game, Mixtape, was found to have sent entire press kits to influencers and content creators, with beautifully furnished collector's editions like packaging, and the shills, like always, aided right up. They always do. For example, you have this content creator guy called Blue Thunder. I have no idea who this guy even is. Apparently, he also has me pre-blocked, but I did see his post on Twitter where he was taking this nice video of himself opening his swag bag box that was sent by Annapurna on behalf of Mixtape. I'm only going to post a screenshot of his video because he'll probably get butthurt to try to copyright me if I actually show the whole video, but basically it's just this Blue Thunder guy showing everything off, like a box, the actual Mixtape, and even a vintage cassette player that even comes with like antique looking headphones and everything too. Like, hilariously, the post this guy made was even community noted, and it says that you can see there that this guy posted this without saying that it was a blatant advertisement for the game, meaning not only is this game LARPing as an indie game, even the industry shills who are shilling for for it are LARPing their care packages like they were the ones that made these gizmos and stuff themselves. Like, good job, Blue Thunder, whoever you are. Now everybody knows that you're a shill, I guess. Please tell me how any of this is an actual indie game. Look, I get it, okay? Indie games can have collector's editions, like Tainted Grail has one as well. But the fact that this game has spent millions of dollars in its licensed music, sent this to all the usual types, has full-blown crisp Netflix-like movie assets and more? Come on. This game is about as indie as I Am a Woman, which is not at all. This is Astroturfed LARPing being like Kaioken times 50 by these people. It's kind of ridiculous. The reason why is because this also dilutes and lessens the industry, because it shows how easily the usual shillers and the websites can be so easily bought and paid for like this. This is the same Annapurna, which in 2024, as seen here from IGN's report, their entire team walked out in protest of Megan Ellison. That's the billionaire daughter who founded the company in the first place. Why that walkout happened was simple. It was a lack of leadership apparently, contracts being left in limbo, and shady tactics according to IGN being done that allegedly left many of Annapurna's employees in the dark, like before that even happened. In 2018, Annapurna was also close to going bankrupt because they were effectively not making any money. How did they survive then? Well, I mean, easy. The lady who founded as a billionaire for a dad. As seen here from Variety in 2018, Annapurna's Mixtape publisher was doing so bad, but oh, never mind. You know, the billionaire dad just invested some of his money, and now everything's totally fine. Actually, there's no problem at all now. After this, in 2019, Megan Ellison just disappeared apparently from public life entirely. She just left all of Annapurna in the dark for about 2 years, which operated autonomously somehow. I guess you can do that when you have $1 billion backing us. She came back in 2021, took back control of the company with the investments from her dad, and now Mixtape is being pushed by them as the totally real, like, indie game, guys. Come on, it's indie. Please believe us. As IGN said here, as you can see, Annapurna's owner was allegedly awful to her employees, and her reach was seen as something to fear, which, yeah, look, I get it. I'm not here to attack Megan Ellison. She can't help that she comes from money. That being said, it's just kind of weird how the further you look into the background of Mixtape and where such a game can be funded and created, yeah, it all kind of starts to make sense. Simply put, the game is just not indie. It's about as indie as saying Skyrim is also an indie game, which obviously it isn't. Indie games do not have the backing like Mixtape did. And again, this hurts the integrity of not just what an indie game can be, but it also hurts the trust and the connection between you, the player, who's also a buyer, and places like IGN and more, who are, you know, supposed to be trusted sources for reviews and whatnot too. Cause, let's be honest, what is indie about a game that somehow has more licensed music than your typical $100 to $200 million Hollywood picture these days? Be honest with yourselves. If you smell crap, it's probably because it's there. It just kind of makes the whole thing feel astroturfed because it likely is just that. How does an indie game release with virtually nothing besides a trailer here or there at an Xbox showcase a few years back, then all of a sudden it's 10 out of 10 everywhere, shills are getting care packages delivered to their door, and magically everybody is talking about this game? This is what we call, guys, astroturfing, like I said, which basically means that Annapurna, with its vast resources, forced the popularity of Mixtape, the reception, and the conversation around it by strong-arming everyone in the industry to talking about it. Not the first ones to do this, I know that, but it's just weird because this is, again, apparently an indie game. Is it a genius plan to get us to know that the game exists? Well, yeah, it is, but it doesn't really feel legit either way, right? Because most indie games fail to break even. This game just feels like it has deep pockets behind it, because it does. Again, like, look at the environments, the fully 3D art assets. These all seem to be custom made by the developers of the game, and that is not cheap to do. That costs money and time and resources that honestly most indie game developers do not have. It is also not weird to anyone how Mixtape has many game mechanics that each exist for a little bit only to never really be used again. Hitting the baseball, riding the shopping cart, throw the toilet paper at the house. Most indie games cannot afford to have these one-off gameplay systems, which totally makes sense because it's very expensive to develop these systems. Use them only once in your game and then pretty much throw them away basically. It's why most indie games super focus on a very few key mechanics, because they can't, by the absolute state of being indie as a concept, they can't afford to just do these sorts of things as one-offs unless you got, of course, AAA money behind you. Mixtape is effectively a very expensively made game that is wearing the moniker of indie like it's a skin suit, and it's really not fair, because we all all know come award time, Mixtape will likely be nominated for Game of the Year, and more importantly, Indie Game of the Year. And because then, how will that even be fair to see Mixtape go up against whatever other game is nominated beside it? It's like you opening a taco stand and having like no money because you spent everything to open the taco stand. And here comes the billionaire with a whole food truck that has built-in air conditioning, seating, and free drinks available. Like, you wouldn't stand a chance. It probably doesn't help either that the characters in Mixtape are essentially kind of supervillains. They all sort of represent some of the worst aspects of what millennials believed being a teenager was all about. Like, one of the girls, whose dad is a cop, has an entire part of the game where she effectively stands up to her dad and tells him that if he gets in her way of living her life the way that she wants to, she will effectively burn down the city she was born in and make her father's life a living hell. Like, yeah, that's totally like rational, not at all an insane person. But this is like one of the heroes of the game. It sort of plays into the whole MCU thing with Marvel even, where the female heroes don't even feel like heroes at all. They just feel more like supervillains, like they're mean, and that many female characters in media that were made from like 2016 to 2025 at least, they all just kind of feel malicious instead of being people that we're supposed to be rooting for. It's no wonder these elements and more connected so resoundingly with game reviewers though, because if you ever needed proof that the games industry reviewers are by and large a group of like-minded individuals who all think and act the same, well, Mixtape definitely proves it. As if the LARP wasn't enough, there's another part of the game where you can rewind a mixtape as seen here in this post, and even the way that Mixtape shows its, well, mixtapes are just wrong because the game doesn't even showcase that properly either. As this post shows here, the whole cassette thing in Mixtape is completely wrong. Again, it's a game all about music and that, but you can't even get the core thing of your game right. This is like a Call of Duty game having your gun animation be you pouring water into a 9mm pistol instead of, putting a clip inside of it. It's just weird. It's just also very obviously a game not being made in a very genuine way. Honestly, if Mixtape wins anything at any game award come this fall, the authenticity and legitimacy of those publications should then be taken into account as not being real places that should probably have any bearing or power over the state of games, in my opinion, in the future. It doesn't take much to ruin your integrity, but maybe I guess if people don't really care. I mean, it'll probably win anyways. Look at its Steam tags as seen here. Story rich, LGBT whatever, female protagonist. Yeah, this is like an atom bomb on games journalists all right, and they love it. But then again, am I surprised at all the entire games industry is effectively just shilling about this game? Not really, to be honest. I mean, look at these review scores from IGN on screen. Like, what do you notice? Every game that actually did well and was loved by the players, all scored suspiciously lower. But the games that strengthened what these types like, yeah, resounding praise. Look, I guess if you're going to IGN for unbiased reviews, you may as well just accept the fact that you're going to get lied to most of the time as well. Because it's obvious at this point, as long as a game hits the things these people want to see, those high scores are just going to be flying. But it's just as bad faith from the industry shill accounts on Twitter. Like this guy here, as you can see, this Pio dude claims that people were saying stuff like Resident Evil Requiem was woke because you can play as a woman in it, which makes no sense. That Pragmata was woke because of Diana somehow. Saros is woke because of the main character. Like, I don't know how bad faith this guy's post is. Like, this is the defense these people have, I guess. It's just LARPers LARPing for other LARPers. And then tying this to Mixtape, like, first of all, how can Resident Evil be woke having women in it? All the games practically have playable women. Well, most of them anyways, I guess. Everybody loves those female characters. That is just cope, and the guy's lying about it. Then you have Pragmata. Like, that one doesn't make any sense. The only people who had problems with Pragmata were the games industry and the people who weren't happy seeing other people actually loving to see a healthy father-daughter relationship in a video game for once. It was actually the very games industry that attacked the game and its players. Again, this Pio guy is just lying here, and Saros got cut because it was a humiliation ritual. But I'm not going to get into that one because of spoilers, and you're not here for that game, obviously. But either way, if this is the best these sorts of LARPers can do in defense, you have to ask yourselves, what are we doing then? But as far as I can see, nobody's calling Mixtape woke either. All anybody's been saying about the game is that it's clearly a carefully constructed Trojan horse that is being astroturfed into making people believe that it's an indie game when it clearly isn't. And that just ruins integrity. Like, why are these people such liars? I don't get it. You can't trust the game reviewers. And now you can't even trust these gaming Twitter pages either. All these people are like little fish just swimming endlessly in circles, all climbing over one another, looking for their little piecemeal treats to be tossed into the water tank so they don't starve. Pragmata is woke, you moron. Actual low IQ take there. Disappointing to see, but oh well. I guess people will say whatever they have to in order to keep access these days because that's all they think that legitimizes them. Or here, where Atreus reposts Queef, where the mighty Queef acts oblivious as to why the discourse is happening with Mixtape. Gee, imagine my shock. The guy who shilled for Yote is conveniently oblivious to why people are rolling their eyes over Mixtape. It's so obvious why this is the take. And again, I don't want to hear anyone say, oh, cause it's woke. No, it's not that. Mixtape is just a blatant industry plant. That's the core issue of the entire situation. And if anybody tries to say otherwise, they're just pulling a queef. But this is why you keep seeing this growing disconnect when it comes to pretty much everything. It's not between graphics or genre, right? But between what the gaming media celebrates and what the actual paying customers out here want to see more of. And it's always the same patterns too. Certain games receive an enormous amount of glowing press coverage and get massive praise. They get that prestige framing. Oh, the critics love it. And then you look at the player conversations around these games. Your mixtapes, your Veilguards, your marathons, and more. All games that IGN and then some scored really high. And then the enthusiasm from the paying public just isn't there. Meanwhile, other games that generated massive organic hype from actual gamers themselves are then treated with like more skepticism, like your Crimson Desert, your Stellar Blades, your Lords of the Fallen, and more. And that's why you have this sort of controversy, if you even want to call it that, because the scale and tone of the media enthusiasm surrounding this game does not feel organic at all. It's like watching a random Nepo baby in Hollywood suddenly being pushed as some new Hollywood A-list star out of nowhere who totally got there on their talent alone. Because when you spend time online, you are going to start seeing the patterns. The same kind of games that are cinematic, indie, prestiged, whatever, or artistically framed will suddenly get enthusiastic critical attention all over. But if the games are real games, mechanics, systems, gameplay first, player freedom, there's a far colder tone in how the coverage then feels like. Not always, I get that, sure, but it's enough to make people go, this feels weird, doesn't it? Again, Crimson Desert got enormous interest from players. The reaction to it felt actually organic. Excitement spread around that game because players were instead driving that conversation, not websites or billionaires' daughters who own so-called indie companies. And yet there's that perception among many that titles like Crimson Desert will be receiving the same level of prestige enthusiasm for parts of gaming media compared to the more cinematic, narrative-focused projects like your mixtapes. This then brings me to a question I would love an answer to if you guys don't mind me telling me what you think, which is, well, what does modern gaming media actually value these days then? Because to me, it feels like these game critics just want games to be more like films or TV, rather than video games that are built around deep systems or have real player-driven gameplay. Like, to me, it seems that the gaming media out here, they want games to be simplified and more digestible, because at their core, this same games media cannot be bothered to truly dive into these games that people actually want. Because they have to then actually play it, challenge themselves, and not be fed a forced narrative where they might have to press a button once or twice before the credits end up rolling. And that's why this Annapurna connection thing stinks, because it spoils the image of what publishers have influence over in the broader sense. Now, to be clear, being connected to wealth or influence does not suddenly invalidate creative work. That's not the point here. But it does contribute to the perception among many that certain projects will receive a level of media protection or prestige amplification, if you will, that these other games just won't get. And whether people want to admit it or not, like, that perception is going to matter. And this is why review culture has become so controversial these days, because players increasingly feel disconnected from critics' scoring systems, and that shows. Whenever some game gets a 9 or a 10 out of 10, and then players buy it thinking that they can trust that, all they end up with is an experience that doesn't really match what they were being sold, and that disconnect is going to damage trust over time. And this is even more obvious than ever, since people consistently find themselves more aligned with word-of-mouth reactions over, say, whatever IGN or Polygon have to say about it. To me, it feels like gaming media these days especially is gravitating more so towards the games that are easier to discuss, right? The more a game is like a movie, the more they like it because it's just easier. But it's lazy too, whereas gameplay-heavy games are harder to critique in an editorial format, because stuff like mechanics or even like player agency, they're not really as easy to summarize. And again, it would then mean that game reviewers and these journalists would then have to play, more video games, and oh my god, how dare we suggest such an idea? What are we, monsters? Apparently. And this is why the audience skepticism keeps growing, especially now with Mixtape. Not necessarily because players think that critics are evil. They're not all evil. A lot of them are dumb, but I wouldn't say they're super villains. But because many players are increasingly feeling that the media meant to represent us these days are instead prioritizing things that no longer fully align with the priorities of what people want to see or even even connect to. I can't speak for everyone, but for me, I care more about long-term engagement, right? The mechanics of a game, the customization option, what systems I can play with, the replayability even, the performance of a game, like will it crash day one or not? Will it corrupt my save? That matters to me. But the industry instead, it seems like they're more interested in the messaging behind these games, or maybe framing things with prestige or not, because that gives them legitimacy in their words. This is also why some people online are starting to throw around words like astroturfing, right? It's not necessarily because there's evidence of coordinated manipulation, but it's because the enthusiasm gap here, it feels really, really weird, man, like fake even. And when media excitement appears dramatically higher than player excitement, which with Mixtape, that is absolutely the case, you really can't blame the people out here who begin questioning the authenticity of the conversation itself, because yeah, it is the way it is. That doesn't automatically mean that something sinister is going to be happening here, but it does reveal a trust problem between audiences and the gaming media, and that really can't be denied, can it? Mixtape may ultimately succeed or fail in its own merits. That's up to you whether you actually bought it or not. But the reaction surrounding this game proves that a growing divide is definitely happening, and it is 100% real. That can't be denied. It's a divide that is being fueled by differing priorities, right? Different definitions of what value is, and increasing distrust around review culture itself. And I really can't blame people for feeling this way. And until that disconnect is addressed, these controversies are only going to become more common. And the more the industry ignores that, keeps accepting these care packages, shilling and pushing games that are totally indie, guys, trust us, when they really aren't, well, you can get mad all you want about the pushback. It's not going to change anything. Because at the end of the day, people don't care how prestigious a game sounds in an article. They care whether the game actually connects with them when they finally pick up that controller when they buy it. And the industry ignores that reality, and it's at their own risk. So whatever happens next, well, that's up to them. And if they're mad at how it all turns out, they can really only blame themselves, can't they? Either way, it's an interesting conversation nonetheless, but what do you think? Thanks for being here. Subscribe if you want to. As for me, yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna keep playing what I think are real video games. Thanks.